Hey guys, it's Alex, and I'm here with today's review for Paperweight by Meg Haston. I remember a number of people were reading this book over the summer, and I was very curious and interested to join them, but I had a lot of other reading going on at the time, and I had difficulty getting the book from my library, so I didn't read this until sometime in October. This is a young adult contemporary novel about a girl who suffers from an eating disorder. Her older brother died in a car accident about a year before, and she plans to kill herself on the anniversary of his death. She's sent to a residential eating disorder facility where she lives for several weeks, and the story takes place there as she deals with the things that have happened to her and her feelings towards them. I gave this book 3 stars. I wanted to like it a lot more than I did, and oftentimes with eating disorder books, I rate them lower because I feel like the eating disorder representation is poorly done. But I honestly didn't feel that in this book. I thought the eating disorder representation was fine. I did have some issues with it that I want to discuss in a minute, but overall, I just didn't connect with the story very well. When I read books about teenagers, or really anyone, that are about their mental health struggles, I want to connect with the character. I want to empathize with them. I want the book to make me emotional. And I really didn't feel that with this book. I was lacking that emotional connection that is kind of the reason why I enjoy reading these books. Like, I have suffered from like eating disorder stuff, but regardless of if I've experienced it myself or not, when reading these types of books, I want that connection. I want that feeling to be there where I can associate myself with the character. And this book, I felt like I struggled to get a good grasp on who she was as a person and what she was feeling. I felt like there was a lot of telling going on. Like, I was told who she was. I was told what she was doing. I was told what she was feeling. And I didn't get to see or feel that for myself. And because of that, there was a lot of distance between me and the character. And for a book like this, that closeness that I feel is kind of important. It's the most important thing, and I can't enjoy a book if I don't have that. I felt like an outsider looking in when I wanted to be there and experience everything for myself. And that's not to say that everyone felt that way when reading this book, because I did see that it got a lot of very positive reviews, but I just couldn't connect very well because of that. Now, onto the eating disorder representation, because I know that's always a very big discussion whenever talking about eating disorder books, because I feel like there are so few eating disorder books that are well done. It seems like a lot of them are very cringy and very triggering and just not really great books overall. Looking at Winter Girls by Laurie House Anderson, for example. But this I thought was fine. I feel like I run into two problems when reading eating disorder books, because I have read a lot of them and I do seek them out because I'm always looking for one that's just like absolutely amazing. And I think I have found that in Hannah Moskowitz's Not Otherwise Specified, which was the best eating disorder book I've ever read. But it is about a girl who's in the process of recovery, and by the time the book starts, she's already well into the process of recovery. So I feel like I'm still looking for a great book that tells the story of a person who's still very much in the middle of their eating disorder and hasn't started recovery yet. And this book I don't think was that. I think it was well done enough, but I run into two major problems when it comes to eating disorder books. Either they're very specific and detailed and number oriented, which was my main problem with Winter Girls. It feels like those kind of books are sort of intended to trigger, and like you can't, in good faith, give those books to someone who has an eating disorder, who has previously suffered with an eating disorder, because they feel like the purpose of them is to trigger, and it's such a difficult topic to write about. And people who have experienced eating disorders personally don't write them that detailed because they know that just that overall focus on numbers and needing to know every number doesn't work in a story because it's just triggering. That's all it is. It doesn't make for a very good story. Or you have authors who do know that and fall on the other end of the spectrum, which is that they're too vague, and because they're too vague, it's hard to really connect with them very well because they're trying not to make it all about numbers, even though realistically there would be a lot of numbers involved for most people in these situations. And this book definitely fell into the too vague category, which I feel like I tend to prefer because it does feel more like it's trying to be a good eating disorder book for people who have suffered from eating disorders, But even then, it makes it hard to connect, and doubly so for this book. Because of the way it was vague and because of the way things were told, I felt like I couldn't get a very good grasp on Stevie, the main character's feelings. I felt like I never really understood what she was experiencing, and I was always looking for a little bit more. But I do feel like overall, this is a book that I could recommend to teens who suffered with eating disorders, because I feel like something with Winter Girls wouldn't be appropriate, wouldn't help. I feel like that could do a lot more damage than help. And I feel like this book wouldn't be like that. I think this book could help a lot of people. I think it might be something that people could relate to. But I just found there to be such a disconnect that I couldn't get emotionally involved, and I couldn't really bring myself to care as much as I wanted to. It's weird because usually with eating disorder books, regardless of how they're written, I do find them to be slightly triggering for myself. But this book wasn't in any way. Like, I went in expecting that and knowing that I'm like that. But this book didn't trigger me in the slightest, and I think that was just because I had such a hard time relating to it and relating to the main character. It was fine, but for me, that was about it. I did think the writing and the story flowed pretty easily. I would sit down to read this book for a few minutes, and then 80 pages would just fly by, and I realized I made a decent chunk of progress. It took almost no time to get through, and I feel like partially because of that, this book felt really fast paced. And I don't know if that's just me, and I just really prefer these long, slow, drawn out stories. But this book felt like it went by really fast, especially with her recovery and how much time it took for her to get to different points in her recovery. It seemed like it was all happening like a lot faster than it would for the average person. It seemed like she came to conclusions very quickly, and the action proceeded very, very quickly. I do understand that some things have to be sped up for them to fit into a single book in a single time period. It can't all be like real life. But I do feel like things were just too fast in this book. It went by very, very quickly. And I think it all felt a little bit too easy, the way she went through her recovery. I think she made too many leaps and bounds in too short of a time that made it feel a little bit unrealistic. Overall, I can see why other people have rated this book so highly. I do understand why people would thoroughly enjoy this and think this was amazing. And for me, it felt like all the elements were there. I just couldn't connect with them. So it got 3 stars, but I did have to sit there and really think for a while about what this book deserved. Because a lot of the elements I do think were well done. I thought the writing was fine. I thought the story flowed really well. And the eating disorder representation was fine, which is, fairly high praise considering most of the time I think the eating disorder representation is very poorly done. But I just couldn't connect with the story emotionally the way that I really wanted to and needed to really appreciate it. Which really disappointed me because I had high hopes going in. Let me know down below if you read this book and what you thought of it if you did. I'd love to hear from you guys. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys again soon.